There's a new report out by the Pew Research Centre called Key Findings About Growing Religious Hostilities Around the World. David Botti from BBC News in America has just produced a new summary of that report that Pew uses on its own website. The entire tone of the piece is, "Boo-hoo, poor religious people being oppressed and prevented from worshipping their fantasy friends." Right from the opening credits, complete with emotive oh-so-sad music, this piece is presented like a Bill O'Reilly Christmas Under Attack piece, not an impartial piece of analysis. Reading the original research, the tone is somewhat more balanced, providing statistics that show that the hostility is not merely against religion, it is largely by religion. Indeed, when you go to the page expanding the details of the report, the main title is Religious Hostilities Reach a 6-Year High. So let's just take a look at the facts behind the facts.
Religion plays a part in countless lives, but 3/4 of the world's population lives in countries where religion is highly restricted. That's according to a new report by the Pew Research Center, which also found hostilities towards religion have reached a 6-year high.
Taken without explanation, that makes it sound as though all religion is highly restricted in these places, and that's simply not true. Some places where religion is the most restricted are Islamic theocracies, such as Iran and Syria. Furthermore, because the study is organised by population, China accounts for 20% of the figure on its own. It must also be noted that countries such as Pakistan have secular governments, but it is the predominantly Muslim population that is murderously hostile towards all other faiths, including the non-faith of atheism.
You've got places where the government restricts religion, Egypt being where this happens the most.
The Egyptian governmental policy against religion in politics was the direct result of former President Mohamed Morsi, who was democratically elected, but who then, against the country's own laws, wanted to impose hardline Islamic laws over the population. He was deposed as part of the uprising known as the Arab Spring, in which the population rebelled against the oppression that he wanted to impose. To characterise this as restricted religion in a negative context is directly akin to talking in sad terms about a murderer's restriction of freedom. Religion was the problem that sought to impose its narrow tenets upon the population unwilling to accept such impositions. Religion was the aggressor, not the victim. Looking at number 2 on the list, China, the country actually permits all of the main faiths, although they must be under the auspices of national oversight committees. However, the greatest restriction upon religion in China is that religion cannot be controlled from foreign countries, which causes a problem for the Catholics. Then, third on the list is Iran, and what religion is restricted there? Anything that's not Islam. Iran is an Islamic theocracy that oppresses all other faiths, so to simply imply that religion is restricted without clarifying that it is also religion doing the restriction is disingenuous in the extreme.
And then you've got countries where the society itself is hostile to certain religions. Pakistan leads on this front.
Remember, the population in Pakistan are not hostile to all religions, just all non-Islamic ones. Again, religion is both the problem and the victim in this case, and many others such as Syria, Palestine and Sudan, to name but a few.
The UK, France and Mexico are ranked lower for government restrictions, but higher when it comes to social hostility.
Again, this unqualified fact makes it seem as though religion is the victim, when in fact it is part of the problem. The UK and France both have extremely open societies and moderately progressive governments operating on mostly democratic principles, ultimately reinforced by the European Court of Human Rights. Both countries have growing Muslim communities, which in both countries have not merely been content to practice in private, but have actively brought about hostilities on the streets, and have, even in a very limited manner, been directly linked to terrorism and terrorist recruitment, with high-profile agitators such as Anjem Choudary and Abu Hamza getting a lot of airtime. Furthermore, since the massive backlash against scandals in the Catholic Church, it's hardly surprising if there's a public reaction against these two religions. But, to their discredit, both Britain and France have always had strongly racist activist movements, and Muslims with their immediately recognisable appearance do make easy targets. The big issue here is the interpretation. Are these truly hostilities based exclusively upon theology or race?
So what's happening and to whom? Christians and Muslims are harassed in the most number of countries.
What the narrator fails to mention is that they are each the most likely to be the harassers of the other. Indeed, even the numbers are almost dead even, 110 places where Christians are harassed versus 109 for Muslims. Ever since Islam started around 600 CE, it has been in violent conflict with Christianity and vice versa.
While Buddhists are harassed in the least number of countries.
Well, go figure. The religion that seeks to impose itself the least on the rest of the world receives the least hostility. What a surprise.
And Jews, well, they face more social harassment than they face actual government restrictions.
Again, this is not a surprise, as Jews control large chunks of the Western world's media and finance, as well as being held responsible for the murder of the Christians' deity, Jesus. It's hardly surprising that they are not popular amongst many communities. Of course, it is their very financial power that means that they are less likely to be vilified by governments who recognise the importance of their contribution to the economy, or are afraid of their power. Depending upon your interpretation of the Jews' role in society, they are either the most unfairly maligned group in history, or utterly deserving of the contempt in which they are held.
Pew's research found that religious minorities are often targets of abuse.
Yes, by religious majorities.
Whether they're Muslims in Buddhist-majority Sri Lanka,
So, Buddhists oppressing Muslims,
or Coptic Christians in Muslim-majority Egypt.
and Muslims oppressing Christians. And let's not forget Muslims versus Muslims in Syria, Pakistan, India and many other countries.
Women and what they wear are also a religious flashpoint. 1/3 of countries saw women harassed over religious dress, a big jump from just a few years ago.
Given global tension about Islamic extremism since 9/11, to say nothing of the explosion of Muslim versus everyone violence across the world over the past decade, but really only continuing a trail of violence that started with Muhammad around 600 CE, is it any wonder if Muslims are singled out for hostility? The individual women who wrap themselves in hijabs, veils or burqas may not be guilty of wrongdoing, but the faith that they support has hands drenched to the shoulders in blood. And let's not forget that whilst the report shows the poor little Muslim women who choose to bag themselves, flavour fresh for their male owners, Western women who choose to show a little more skin in Muslim countries have also been the victims. That being said, whilst I strongly disagree with any form of full-body modesty covering, it is disturbing that in 1/3 of countries women report being harassed over their religious dress. This statistic does require more qualification, however. I imagine that you could find dozens of women in every country on earth who have been harassed for dressing trashy.
When it comes to the overall rise in religious hostilities, the sharpest increases took place in the Middle East and North Africa.
Yes, and who is being hostile? Other religions. This is not atheists and agnostics causing the problems. We're not forming gangs and going out raping and pillaging. It's mostly Muslims and Christians, with a massive majority being Muslims. In the modern world, fear and prejudice against this religion and its partner in crime, Christianity, is not unfounded or unreasonable. The Pew report makes fascinating reading, but this piece by BBC hack David Botti paints a very one-sided picture in which religion is merely the victim in every case, and not also the primary assailant. In fact, had he changed the narrative from victim to attacker, the statistics would have supported exactly the same conclusion in the majority of cases. The fact is, as I stated in my previous video, and now massively supported by this new independent global study, religion is one of the primary causes of conflict on this planet today. Hey guys, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please take the time to rate and comment, and it would mean a lot to me if you would subscribe. Thank you.